Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining us live here. My name is Will Dowling, coming to you from our Tampa headquarters. With me today, I've got Peter Kujawa. Peter's the VP of Service Leadership, and we're going to dig in and talk a little bit about the Service Leadership Index 2023 Annual IT Solution Provider Compensation Report today. So, Peter, tell me a little bit, like, what's this report? We haven't had it in a little while. Tell us a little bit about why we brought it back and what it is.
Well, hey, first of all, thanks for having me on. We brought it back because service leadership in the past, every other year would do a compensation report. And it was really handy. At the time, I was a partner and a client of service leadership, and we looked forward to that report. It had a lot of great information for us and helped us pay our people and know what we should be doing. And the last time that report was run was in 2016 based on 2015 data. So clearly, sitting here in last year in 2022, we were getting a lot of requests with all the wage inflation and the effects that was having on partners all over the world. We were getting a lot of requests for up-to-date data on what should I be paying a level one? What are increases this year, et cetera. And we just didn't have any updated data. So we made the decision in October to bring it back. And it was a huge team effort and lift to do it, but we were able to bring it back. Partners entered their data in November and December. And so the report's brand new, all updated data. It's really, really incredible. We're super excited about it.
That is awesome. So, and really with as changing as our industry is, I mean, I think it's definitely very important for us to have that information. So let's talk a little bit about what viewers actually find in that report. I know we talked a little bit about that, what you mentioned with the salary information, but tell us a little bit of a breakdown of it.
Well, believe it or not, it's over 400 pages long. We've got about 300 pages of data tables. And so that data is organized by region. We have the top 15 metros in the U.S. And I'll actually show you a few of those slides. So
yeah, let's go for it.
You're going to get data on over 50 different common TSP positions. So technical positions, sales and marketing, account manager, VCIO, and administrative positions. And you're going to get data on both staff and manager level positions as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, let's dig into that a little bit.
Yeah. In addition, service leadership, because we benchmark the IT industry for profitability every quarter, we're the only company in the world that can do the analysis that we did on this. And that is specifically not just looking at what our company is paying, but we were able to go a step further and look at how does it correlate to profitability. We went in and wanted to really see, are there some common traits between how the most profitable companies pay their people and how the least profitable companies pay their people. So what we found really blew our mind. Well, it's amazing data. So let me show you just a few examples of that.
Yeah, let's dig into that.
So first of all, our sample set was worldwide. We had great participation all over the US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, the UK, Ireland. So our data set was really, really incredible. And we were able to, as a result, differentiate it by region. Well, but back to the profitability correlation, we looked at things like, do the more profitable companies pay their people differently? So we looked at variable pay tied to company profitability. And what we found was that the most profitable companies paid about 2 times as much variable incentive pay than the bottom quartile or the least profitable companies did for their staff positions. And even more dramatic was how they did it for manager positions. Manager positions, they paid 2 to 3 times as high of a percentage of total annual earnings than the bottom quartile folks did. And you might think that's because the most successful companies are making a lot more money, so they're paying their people a lot more. But on average, it was actually the opposite. The most profitable companies were actually paying their total pay was less than what the bottom quartile and median companies were for both staff and manager positions, with the exception, notably, of the owner, because if you're running a more successful MSP or TSP, you're able to pay yourself more as an owner because there's more profit at the end of the year.
Absolutely.
So really, really interesting. We also looked at increases and looked at actual raises paid last year. And so we've got a bunch of data on that. And then we collected what everybody was budgeting for increases for this year. And what we found was on profitability correlation, the least profitable TSPs paid the highest increases last year. So this is specific to MSPs, and the bottom quartile folks, all of which are losing money today. Those folks actually over 50% of their positions, 54% of their positions received an increase of over 6% last year.
Oh, wow.
The best in class still paid large increases, but only 32% of their people received over 6%.
Wow.
Now everybody was up over 3%. You can see that less than 20% of positions got an increase of less than 3%. So wage inflation, definitely we saw it in the data.
Yeah.
What we saw for this year was that the bottom quartile are also planning on paying the biggest increases. So what the data told us is that they're paying the most. These are companies that are for the most part losing money, and they're paying the most. They're tying the least of it to incentive pay and company success, and they paid the biggest increases last year, and they're paying the biggest increases this year. These companies really need to fix their profit model, and hopefully the data that we'll show will help them do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we also have a lot of data in here by position, by region. So this shows service desk positions by regions throughout the U.S. And so you can see the difference between the Northeast and the Midwest and some other markets. But you can see pretty commonly what their spread is from level 1 to level 3 techs. And regardless of what region you're in, have an idea of what the differential should be there. These are some engineer positions, project coordinator, project manager, also by region. And we also show the increased percentage from a project coordinator up to a project manager. You'll see by position averages that tie all this together. This is showing all US. We have regional specific ones in there. So this is showing some really common technical positions. On average, what are we paying? On average, what's the percentage that's tied to incentives, increases, hourly bill rates? Really interesting was by experience level. So this shows a level 1 help desk position, and shows really common. You're hiring a help desk position, you get somebody in who's green. You might also get somebody in who has several years of experience and wants a lot more money. And how do you know what the value of those positions, the value of that experience is? So we've got a lot of data in here by experience, by position. This is VCIO and technical account manager. So what you can see is VCIO, on average, those positions pay about 80,000 up to somewhere in the 110, 120,000 range on average. And you can see about how much incentive should be tied to those. These are showing some other data by position, by experience, and by region within the US. And as I mentioned earlier, 15 cities will have their own data set. And so this is showing Chicago specific, but the top 15 cities, and then we have other sub markets that are divided out as well.
That is
awesome. We also do it by tier 1, 2, and 3 MSA. So if I'm in a more of a smaller metro market versus, let's say I'm in Peoria versus Chicago, I can understand what some of those differences might be. So we've got data on utilization and how it correlates to compensation in there. And we put all of this into an executive summary, so you don't have to pay for and read all 400 pages. We've got an executive summary that covers a lot of those profitability correlations, and that's free.
Excellent. That's what we like to hear. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, really, it's available now. We've got a link to it in the chat, I believe, and there's also a QR code you can scan here. But the exec summary is about 15 pages and a lot of charts and graphs. It's really nice graphically to look through. And then the full report is available for purchase now for $17.99. So anybody out there can get a copy of the full 400 plus page report today.
That's awesome. That is a absolute ton of information. So being able to have that at your fingertips whenever especially when you're trying to grow your business, I think is invaluable. Like it's something that you can't really put a value on because it's so important. So, with that, if you can get that a copy of that executive summary, I highly recommend going ahead and doing it, taking a look at it, and making sure that hey, this is the information we need to be able to grow, be able to be more successful. And, this is something that they'll really be able to use a lot of that data in their business. Do we want to give the 30-second version on how they can kind of do that?
Yeah, you bet. I mean, first of all, for every TSP out there, salaries and wages is their largest expense.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a service provider, you're a managed service provider, about 70 to 80% of your expenses are going to be tied up in your people, maybe more in some cases.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so even a little bit of a difference, if you understand what increases are, when we looked at, for example, the increases for last year, it might not seem like there's a big difference between over 6% and 4 to 6%. But when 80% of your cost of your business is your cost of your team,
Mm-hmm.
there's a big difference between doing 4 or 5% increases and doing 7 and 8.
Absolutely.
It could be the difference between you being profitable in a quarter and not. So, yeah, they can go into the report. We give a lot of guidance in there on best practices, guidance on compensation planning and incentive, how you should be doing incentive pay. And so there's a lot of detail in there on not only what the data is, but if you get the full version of the report, there's a lot of data on how to do a lot of these things in a best practice way.
That is absolutely fantastic, Peter. And, I know for those of you who are watching, this is a really high level version of everything that's in this report. If you want to find out more, Peter is actually doing a webinar on May 23rd for a deeper dive into this compensation report. Highly recommend going ahead, registering for that webinar, and you can find out even more. Peter, I appreciate you joining me today. And for everybody else out there, stay classy.
Thanks, Will. Take care.
All right. Take care, everybody. Have a great one.